That's right.
All right, Bart, what do you have?
So there's been a lot of talk in recent weeks about kind of the expectations for the Razorback program, right? And kind of what this program is, what they should be, what fans' expectations should be, what all that looks like. And so instead of just continuing to yap about it, I decided to look at the data and look at what this program has historically been to give us an idea of what the expectation can realistically be, what fans should realistically expect. Yes, Chuck.
Well, because what you hear from a lot of people, you brought it up yesterday, is I don't think 7 or 8 wins and jumping up to 9 or 10 every 4. I don't think that's unrealistic. I don't think that's out of bounds. I hear that more than I hear anything else from Razorback fans.
And what the data shows is that they're not really wrong, at least not that far off when people say that. So I looked at every Razorback football season from the time Frank Broyles became head coach through last year. And I looked at different different eras.
Was it 58?
54 maybe? No, that's too early. 58,
I think.
And I broke it down into different eras, but also looked at kind of the overall picture. I looked at average wins, how many 9-win seasons, how many 8-win seasons for the Razorbacks. And in total, since Frank Broyles became the head coach, Arkansas's averaged 7 wins a season, has won 9 or more games 36% of the time, and has won 8 or more games 51% of the time. Now, obviously, I understand that spans 2 different conferences, right? Like that spans the Southwest Conference to the SEC, right? And there have been some down moments in the SEC. But if you want to just look at the Houston Nutt and Bobby Petrino era, right, the time when Arkansas has been most successful in the league, averaged 7.8 wins a year, had a 9-win season 43% of the time, had an 8-win season 64% of the time under Nutt and Petrino. And look, since Arkansas joined the SEC, a lot of mistakes have been made. I think that's fair to say. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Jack Crow was not the right guy to lead Arkansas into the SEC, right? Danny Ford was not a great hire. Like he was past his prime at that point. John L. Smith, Chad Morris, with all due respect, one of the worst hires in the history of the league and maybe college football, at least in terms of major college football. If you take those seasons away, those mistakes away, it's still an average of almost 7 wins a year and winning 8 or more games half the time. On average, every other year is an 8 or more win season. So to all the people who say, this program could be better, the data agrees with you. Like the numbers say yes, that is true. And it's not easy, but averaging 7 wins a year, winning 8 or more games every other year, that's a reasonable expectation because that's what this program has been, with the exception of mistakes. And I think that's what we can call mistakes. When mistakes get made, it can throw everything out the window. But on average, this is what the program can be. And this is what it should shoot for. So the fans who say, let's be better than just a 5 or 6 win program every year. You're right. That's what this program is. It is better than that.
So, a couple things. I would need to know about the rest of the league and where their average win total has been over a similar period of time. And when you put a bunch of programs in a league and they all have something like that or higher, now you have a math problem.
That's right.
So now you have a new thing of better teams competing against each other. But I think if you go back and you look, most of the years when Arkansas is not winning that number of games, they're losing close games. They're always – it feels like most of the years, not counting Chad Morris, most years this is a competitive program. And the years that you have great years are where you end up with better in-state talent, or in today's world, you get really good transfers. I feel like there's been this last 3 or 4 year period too, where the NIL era and the money that's being spent and all that stuff, players are leaving for more money. You're not getting certain players because you don't have enough money. All those things factor in as well. And I think we're also in a time where less high school football talent is coming out of our state than in some of those previous years. So there's just so many factors to all of this. But if you were to ask me, do I think on a year in and year out basis that Arkansas should win 7 or 8 games? Yeah, I think they should. But that's in a vacuum and in such a broad conversation. Like take, for example, this year's schedule. You have a top 3 difficult schedule in the country. If you have Missouri's schedule, winning 7, 8 games is not only the expectation, you're going to be disappointed if you don't win that or more. If you have Kansas State's schedule, we went over that. You feel like you win 10 games. You feel like Kansas State plays your schedule, and you had them at 4 or 5 wins this year. All of those things matter. But as a program, I don't feel like Arkansas is anywhere near, what we think of Vanderbilt. Like, we have resources in this state. The facilities are great. We have a great fan base. We do have traditions here. It matters, and it can be, and I know will be better. Might be better this year. But there's also some other factors that I just went over that if you don't include those, you're not really getting the whole picture.
Well, I think, for example, you look at the number of 9-win seasons Arkansas has had. It's not lost on me. 17 of them came before they joined the SEC, and only 7 have come since. You look at the 8-win seasons, go down, 32 of them came before the SEC. 12 of them have come since. There's a big difference. I mean, there's just a big difference. There are certain points where, things change. College football changed in the late 60s, and around 1970, you had integration in the South. That changed everything. When Arkansas went to the SEC, everything changed. Now we're in the NIL open transfer portal era. Things change. There aren't that many programs who've been able to sustain success through all of those eras. Arkansas had a lot of success. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers you put here, Bart. The double-digit numbers, the big numbers, all came pre-SEC. I mean, you look at the average number of wins. The Nutt-Petrino eras produced an average of 7.8 wins, all SEC. Crow Ford 4.8, post-Petrino 5.2. Broyle 7.6. Holtz 8.8, Hatfield 8.8. First off, could Broyles have survived 7.5 wins for 20 years in the modern era? I don't think so.
No, of course not.
But all this is great. But I do think that, it's not lost that the majority of the success came before the SEC.
100%. But that's why I kind of broke it down and said without some of the mistakes that were made, like this is still on average a 7-win a year program that can jump up to 8 or more wins on average every other year.
One of the things that's got to be said, though, is early in the SEC, Crow and Ford, those were not mistake hires.
That's fair.
Arkansas was woefully unprepared for the SEC, and the operative word there is woefully. I mean, I was there. They weren't even on the same page with a lot of the teams they were playing. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And Ford came in, and Ford replenished and emphasized line of scrimmage play and had really good line coaches on both sides of the ball. And they were better in that area when Houston Nutt came in. Nutt infused an attitude of winning. He was the first coach we've ever had that dared to utter the words national championship. Now, we turned that around on him and used it against him at the end. But, those are the guys that have had the success.
Two quick things I want to add here. One is that it is important to realize that, during the Broyles era and during much, if not all, the Holtz and Hatfield eras, Arkansas was playing a different number of games every year as well.
You're right.
They're playing one fewer game. So those numbers are actually like even better, right?
I think that's
time
the
frame.
hardest part for people to get their head around, and we can go take a call here, is the difference between the Southwest Conference and the SEC.
Right.
And what's changed in that time.
Yeah.
But like Chuck has pointed out before, you can go back and look historically too at Arkansas' schedule, the kind of teams they played, and then they'd get in a bowl game, and they'd play somebody from the SEC or whatever and get beat.
What I don't understand is we got a YouTube comment here from Marcus that says 8 wins should be the standard with the occasional dip to 6 or the occasional rise to 9 or more. I literally just told you that the data shows that this is, on average, a 7-year-a-win program.
Well,
since Frank Broyles.
Since Frank Broyles, but
and so to say 8 should be the standard, that has not been the standard for 70 years. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, that's your problem is reading the text.
Well,
some of the text you just have to realize what you're dealing with. Matt in Morrilton. Matt, we'll take your call. Good morning. You're on the Chuck and Bo Show.
Good morning, guys. So I did a little bit of research. It's actually a discussion on X, and you know how those discussions go. So I did a little bit of research yesterday. And since 1992, and since Arkansas joined the SEC, there are only 6 SEC programs that have averaged over 8 wins a year, 2 of which have only been in the conference for 1 year, Oklahoma and Texas. So since 92, Georgia and Oklahoma have averaged 9 wins a year. Bama and Florida are just under 9. They're at 8.9. And then LSU and Texas are at 8.4 and 8.2. The only other Arkansas, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri, they all average 6 wins a year during that span. Kentucky, Vandy, and Mississippi State, they're at the bottom. Arkansas is only ahead of South Carolina, Kentucky, Vandy, and Mississippi State, slightly behind Ole Miss and Missouri during that time period. Now, keep in mind, Missouri also had 20 years of playing in the Big 12 to help them out with their resume, too. And plus, I think most would agree Missouri has always played an easier non-conference schedule. But, I mean, that's where it is. Auburn, which I think all of us would agree, Auburn's been a very good program. They've had 3 years, they've had 3 undefeated seasons in that span. And Auburn still does not average 8 wins a year. Despite all the recruiting advantages Auburn has next to the panhandle of Florida, next to, being only 2 hours away from Atlanta, Auburn is not up there with 8 wins a year. So it is going to be difficult. I think there's going to be times like Ole Miss is experiencing now where those programs that I mentioned are, maybe what South Carolina did under Spurrier, where your programs are kind of your middle of the pack to the bottom, that they're going to succeed at times, but they're also going to have those 3-win years that a program like Auburn has shown in the past that it could, or even Curly Hallman and Jared DeNario at LSU had. So there's just so many programs fighting for that 8 wins a year. I think if you took a sports radio show in Columbia, South Carolina today, they'd probably say exactly what you're saying about the Gamecocks, even though historically that's been a pretty bad program.
Yeah, we got to take a break. It's we're in the science lab here. We're in the football science lab, Chuck. There's so many different
numbers are flying around everywhere.
And actually, at the end of the day, comes down to a math problem. Like, who's going to be that team every year? Because as Carl Ravitch would tell you, you're going to go 500 against each other in the league.